All right, what's up? We are live.
All
Um,
right.
and go ahead and introduce the topic for today, sir.
So this is one that I'm actually surprised we hadn't hit on before, considering everything else we've talked about. But the topic will be tools or accessories that, as a knife person, you think other knife people just getting into the hobby, or even people who have been in the hobby, should consider getting. I feel like, especially with battle songs, it's not really talked about that much. Aside from, hey, you probably need a Torx driver to tighten it up and take it apart every now and then. But I know in terms of fixed blades, folders, out the fronts, automatics, there's probably a lot more to consider that might be good to just talk about and see what we can come up with.
Yeah, and I would say that, I mean, a theme that I think will be popping up a lot is, in my opinion, having worked with tools a lot, you get what you pay for the vast majority of things, right? And so you'll hear about people stripping screws and stuff, and like if you're using good tools, that like virtually will never happen using a Torx driver. With Phillips, it's different because it'll want to cam out, but um, so I would say that I think quality matters a lot, probably with most of the tools that we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, which that's probably good to hit right off the bat because I think a lot of people might think, oh, well, as long as I have the tool, it's fine. And they use some crappy tool on a $300 knife and then wonder why things aren't going quite the way they had planned. So that's probably something definitely important to consider before just going out, getting the tools, getting the accessories, and then just absolutely ruining a $300 knife.
Right.
So I had touched on Torx drivers, just because I mean I feel like on most knives you're going to encounter that, and I guess if you do encounter Phillips, which I don't know why you would, but in the event that you do,
I mean, let's be honest, there are some knives out there that probably either come with Phillips or somebody lost a screw, doesn't know what the ones that it came with are called, so they just buy Phillips.
they just get whatever they can put in there.
Right. Super
Um,
glue in some screw.
oh, what else could you do? Could you rivet it in?
Oh, all right, next topic.
So
Jeez.
that's the first thing that comes to mind. I know in terms of another accessory for battle songs is some form of knife oil, just to keep the pivots nice and smooth, to make sure you don't rust out the blade. That's always something to consider as well. I
And
don't know.
I would say, let's just get this right out of the way. We are not sponsored by and have zero interest in being sponsored by Knife Pivot Lube.
I've seen that
Yeah,
everywhere.
we're not interested in that. Like, we're interested in actually giving people the best place to get essentially something that you can use as a lubricant, also as like a rust inhibitor kind of thing.
Do
Um,
my tears count? Do my salty tears count?
um, I don't know. We might want to get an expert to weigh in on that one.
So well, what are some like actual like because I think of, okay, well, could you really, like, if you really needed to, could you slap on some vegetable oil, or would that be frowned on?
I mean, you could. I don't think it would hurt anything. I don't know that vegetable oil has like good lubricity properties or whatever. Um, but I suppose it's better than like water or something.
Slightly better.
Yeah. I would
Well,
use frog lube. I mean, I say I would use. No, I do use frog lube, and I've had the same little squirt bottle of it for like 4 years now, or probably longer. Um, and it probably costs less than a bottle of that stupid KPL stuff.
oh jeez. Just on the offensive. Oh
Well, I
man.
think they're taking advantage of people, and they're taking advantage of like if any kid wants to be able to say that they're sponsored, and so they're taking advantage of that. And so they're
Yeah,
basically
that's
having an army of children going around advertising, and they're paying them $3 once every few months to do it. Like, it's a really shitty thing to do.
Now that's actually an interesting topic because I've seen that be kind of a reoccurring theme in the knife community. Child labor in the knife community. Let's talk about it.
Oh, yes.
But it's kind of done in a way that isn't really in your face. It's not too noticeable until you start to look into it. I know. At least for now, we're kind of trying to go over tools and accessories, but that would be an amazing topic to talk about in like another episode. Like, absolutely,
Let
there's
me
so
make a note, because I think that would actually be interesting, because I think that that's a pervasive problem right now.
it's definitely a big problem in the community, and it's one that no one really wants to talk about because I mean, hey, child labor, but
Yeah.
but
Well, I don't want to hurt
definitely.
my profit margins, you know?
Oh no. The truth is revealed.
Yeah.
There's no machines milling anything. It's just children with chisels and hammers. Oh,
And
no.
screwdrivers.
Oh, oh boy, oh boy.
I mean, I
Ah,
don't know that it's... I'm not convinced that this is a knife community thing. I think this is more of a balisong community thing.
really?
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah, well, you've got a bunch of kids that are going around posting videos of their flipping and stuff. And you have companies that... Like, look, here's the deal. Like, I don't know what some of these trainers and stuff cost or whatever, but $100 is not as much as, like, a 14-year-old thinks it is.
Well, I mean, it is to them, but to like, yeah, I
But
get your
not but
point.
not to like anybody who's an adult.
Yeah,
That's
we've
the
talked about it
problem.
before. Like, I obviously I'm a bit more interested in the marketing aspect of things, even though I have secured like zero deals. But the fact of the
Yeah,
matter
good
is,
job.
but part of the reason I haven't really secured any deals is companies are like, oh, I don't want to deal with that. So you could either be paid, in my eyes, in terms of product, or you can be paid on a cost per impression model, or you could be paid on a conversion model. Either way, most often companies don't want to deal with that simply because it is a lot of effort to kind of have to track it, have to run the numbers, have to kind of come to an agreement on what's fair, what's going to be profitable
Yeah,
for that.
and have
Well,
to actually pay somebody is
and
also problematic.
just a wee bit, and it is a bit easier, and it's not to take shots at any of the companies because, like, look, I have agreed to free product before, in order to do a video or to do something. I have agreed to that, so I'm not saying that's not a good deal. It's just people need to understand what they're agreeing to and be a little bit more informed about it instead of just kind of making these choices that put them in a very vulnerable position and they don't really understand that they could negotiate or that they could come back with a different deal that might be a little bit more beneficial to them. Because keep in mind, the company is going to benefit too. It's not just this thing where you're trying to take advantage of the company. You're just going to ruthlessly take them for all that they can give. No, that's not the point. The point is, let's both mutually gain from this, but let's make it as fair as possible for both parties. That's kind of the crux of the situation there.
Yeah, but I think the thing that you would run into is like your average, I don't know, like I guess you can have a job when you're 16 or whatever. But I'm just gonna say your average adult, right, is not going to be particularly awestruck when they're offered like what does a KPL bottle cost? $300.
I
Um,
mean, is there gold in it? I'll start buying them if there's
let me
gold in it.
look up.
I'll filter the gold right now.
Let me look this up real quick. Um,
And again, just to kind of really stress for anyone listening,
$15.
I
Holy shit! I thought I was exaggerating when I said that.
but from my perspective, and I'm just gonna throw out a little line of, I don't really care if someone makes as much money as they can off of a product, but I do care that the people agreeing to sponsorships are aware of what they're agreeing to. That's
Yeah,
kind of
but
more so.
dude, like, what are you limited to in your bio on Instagram? Like 150 characters or something?
I think so, yeah.
And you've got literally you're offering kids something that like MSRP is $15, but they're paying probably 50 cents a bottle for or something, right? You're offering like $15 for some kid to change their bio for however many months or something, or as long as they want to be able to say that they're sponsored. It's like any adult would be like, why would I do that? That's fucking ridiculous. Like I have some stupid quote in like one of my accounts bios, like it's not worth $15 for me to change that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, but that's part of the being aware and being making your own kind of negotiation instead of just accepting whatever comes along. And I get it, it's very exciting. Sponsorships and being able to work with people is very exciting. But at the same time, even if you are young, even if it does seem like a great deal, all things considered, you're still, I mean, if you're 16, you can make deals with people. You can make deals with actual businesses. It's not like you're incapable of doing it. It's just you got to be careful of how you do it.
Yeah, but some of these kids are like 12, dude.
Oh, well, that's okay. Yeah,
Like
yeah. There,
you don't
we're
usually find adults with KPL stuff in their bio. It's usually
that's
children.
which that raises some questions. A lot
Right,
of
that's the
questions.
problem that I have.
Boy, does that raise some questions.
Right, like I would understand an adult being sponsored by, and I'm just throwing this out there because I have no idea if he actually does this, but the Svix guy, right? Somebody who makes, I don't know, trainers or whatever. Or maybe he does live blades, I'm not sure. But like to be
Is he the
sponsored with a knife is a lot different than being sponsored with something worth 50 cents.
Is he the Australian
I have
trainer
no
maker?
idea.
No, I'm not sure. I know there's a few trainer focused companies, but or makers,
Yeah,
but I'm
there's
not sure.
Nolo. Um, there are other people that I'm not going to give any kind of advertising to, so they can go fuck themselves. But you know, like Nolo, Svix, obviously Squid. But like even
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
it's like, dude, like I if somebody offered me like $200 to change my buyer to something for like 3 months, I wouldn't do it. Like I just wouldn't like that. And I don't think, I don't know, maybe some adults. I'm just not interested in somebody trying to pay me to say something that I don't necessarily agree with. Like you're just not going to get me to do it. But it's easy to essentially take advantage of these kids and get them to start talking about how good something is when they literally have no qualifications to make that kind of a call that
Oh,
something is good or not.
and it's actually, and this is what kind of I think this is why this conversation is worthwhile. Aside from just the knife lube, is that it goes beyond just the knife lube, right? Like it doesn't stop there. The pervasive, uneducated recommendations go beyond that, like well beyond that.
Yeah, and I think it doesn't look good personally on the company, which is why I don't sponsor people. And I won't. And you know this, right? Like I've told you, you know, when I wanted feedback, like private feedback, the way that I see it is, one, you've helped me out a lot, right, in terms of like correcting problems that I would not figure out because I don't flip, right? But the way I see it is like, well, you get a prototype and it's like if you like it and you like flipping it, then you'll end up using it in videos at some point anyway, right? So it's kind of like, I don't know. To me, to have to pay somebody to publish something just calls into question what they're publishing.
Well, there's a whole conflict of interest, right? And this is something that has been going on in the community well before I think you or I even really got involved in any meaningful way. Um, it's not uncommon for companies to kind of throw someone a bone and say, "Hey, like you get the chance to try something, you get the chance to make some videos with this, and maybe we'll toss you some product, maybe we'll toss you some cash." And you know, it's kind of hard to just pass up like, "Hey, well, $200 is $200." That's a really difficult thing to pass up if you really don't care that much about what the actual outcome or the impact of what you're doing is. Um, so I understand why people accept it. I mean, even as small as $15, perhaps, which I man, you really some of these people need to look up what a cost per impression model is, or at least look up what type of conversion models you can come up with. Because man, $15, whew, you're putting yourself really low.
Yeah,
You're
but
putting your
that's the thing is like, you know, like this is why I would never buy KPL. Like I would rather use WD-40 is because the only reason why they have a name in the Balisong community is because a bunch of literal children, like school children, like are essentially advertising for free over and over and over again, posting stories and stuff. And it's like, geez, man, like that just seems like such a shitty thing to do.
yeah, I'm in full agreement. So like,
Yeah,
that's
so
all that pause was.
okay, yeah. So, it's like that is the problem that I think we have with KPL. Don't buy into hype on stuff. Even with tools and stuff, it's like, dude, if something is good, you'll hear about it from people who don't have to be paid to tell you about it.
So like, what's some other tools that you've seen that kind of get pushed on the community, but really don't have that much importance?
I don't know that there's like the KPL stuff is the only one I can think of because I don't recall ever really seeing anybody trying to get someone to buy like a specific Torx driver or something like that.
Well, I think to myself, like, maybe even if we do want to like just talk about screws, like, I know titanium screws have kind of picked up some popularity. I don't really know about the metallurgy of it, but I assume they're not as good as a standard steel screw.
You only want titanium screws if for some reason you need like you need corrosion resistance, if you need them anodized, or if for some like precision thing you would need the weight. Otherwise, there's no reason to buy titanium screws, and they're actually worse as well because it wants to alloy with everything, and so you're going to end up with galling and stuff.
For the uneducated like myself, please explain galling.
I don't know that I have like a technical definition, but it's like if you use some screw or whatever, and this can happen even on just like two flat surfaces right next to each other. Like if, especially with force, if like the metal gets confused which piece it was originally on, I guess is the way to think about it. But that's my understanding of what galling is. But that may not be completely correct. But that's what I am trying to refer to is like titanium has a very high like alloying tendency, I believe. Although maybe I'm wrong, but that's my recollection. And so to use something like that where it's going to want to alloy with, I don't know, some steel or some component in the steel of like the pivot or something, that can cause problems when you try to unscrew it or something because they can like seize up, which is why you have
I see.
there's specific products like on the one of the big fixture plates on my mill, I put this special anti-seize stuff in the screws because I really tightened down on them and they're there for a long time. And so you don't want to end up being unable to get the screws off because I didn't used to do that, but there was one time where I was like, I genuinely thought that I was like in serious trouble. Like I was going to have to try to find some way to cut this off. But eventually I was able to get the screw unscrewed, but you can run into issues like that.
Interesting, yeah. And for ballad songs, I guess maybe it wouldn't be the biggest deal in the world when I actually think about it, because a lot of times you want it to kind of form its own version of Loctite, and that's what it kind of sounds like.
Yeah.
But then again, if you try to take it apart, all of a sudden you're probably going to need to drill through.
Yeah, but I don't know that, like, I don't know that you would really run into it as an issue. but technically speaking, it would be a reason why the titanium screw is worse than the steel one. Because I'm sure that there are certain things in the steel that would want to alloy with other steels, but I'm not sure. I don't. It wouldn't ruin the knife. Like worst case scenario, you could drill it out, and put new hardware in.
Now, speaking of things that could ruin the knife, and this is something that I've thought about because even though I haven't really used my battle songs in any way that would cause them to become dull, I still think about what if I did want to use them as a serious user, and then what if I wanted to sharpen it? Now, in terms of that, I feel like a lot of mistakes could occur. So, like for the average person, do you think it's even worth kind of learning how to sharpen, or is it something that you'd say, look, if for higher end knives, probably don't do it yourself, or you could learn but start at a smaller price and just kind of ruin a couple knives if need be that are like $20 a piece or
Well, you
whatever?
will ruin knives when you're learning to sharpen. So I would start on something cheap. But I kind of feel like if you use your knives like a lot, then you kind of have to figure out how to do it. Otherwise, you're using essentially a disposable product because it's going to end up getting so dull that it's not worth using at a certain point.
It's almost out of necessity. Yeah, so that's an interesting point because again, I really don't use them outside of maybe I'll use it to cut open a box of a new knife that I just bought, and you can imagine how not intensive of a task that is.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's up to the person. Like some people I think just don't care. I do. Oh, like obviously. I want my knives to always be sharp just because I don't know. I guess I'm proud of it, but because of the work that I put into it. And they always have like shiny bevels and everything. But I had a friend who, if he listens, I think he'll recognize that it's him, but I would never name him. But he was new to like sharpening and stuff, and I told him start on a cheap knife because it's not going to go well the first time, right? And he didn't. He started on a not cheap knife, and he was texting me these pictures along the way, like, "Oh, what should I do here?" And I'm like trying to explain, and it's like very evident to me that this is very, very clearly going the wrong direction at a very fast pace. I'm not sure what ended up happening to the knife. He actually may have sent it to me to fix. But you don't want to start on an expensive knife because you can very easily do damage to it that the only way to fix it is to get a new blade. And that's especially true on Zen pin knives because you can, or honestly any knife with a choil, because you can end up grinding the bevel up so high that it essentially no longer clears the Zen pin cup, and so you have this like weird like sharp wall instead of a smooth transition.
Yeah, so that sounds pretty awful. So I guess moral of the story is if you're gonna learn, start off cheap, and if you're not gonna bother to learn and bother to start off cheap, probably just send it off to someone who you can trust.
But for the love of God, do not use one of those absolutely horrific like kitchen sharpening things that has like the multiple V's and you just pull through it because you're ripping metal off. And then you're sitting there trying to put a Band-Aid on it when you use the ceramic one. It's like it's a horrific thing to do. Like it's probably on par with like beating your children or something. Like it's not good.
Would not
bad.
recommend. 0 out of 10.
Well, it depends. I mean, if you've had a really bad day, like I mean,
just ram that knife through the man. And what about, because I've heard this be a problem for some people. Like I read horror stories about people who have attended like Blade Show, and one of the horror stories I've read is people who go there and are like, oh, I'll get my knife sharpened, and then someone will run it through some kind of electronic, like I don't know if it's like belt driven, but it's something
like the
that's
work
gonna
pro thing or whatever.
yeah.
Yeah. I actually, this was kind of subconscious, but I was like wincing when you were talking about them going to Blade Show and like asking somebody to sharpen their knives. Like, I would never do that. Dude, it's like what you have happen with a lot of these people on Reddit who are like suddenly offering mod services. Like,
Oh
what
no.
are you thinking? Like, that is nuts. Like, don't, just because somebody spends, I don't, how much does it cost? Like $1,000 or something, a couple $1,000 for a booth at Blade Show. I have no idea. Like, to spend that and have that be your credentials, and for people to actually buy that, like,
Wait,
holy
are
shit,
you
dude.
saying like as long as you're just like remotely into knives, you could just purchase a booth at Blade Show?
I may or may not have implied that.
Okay, I was gonna
Yeah,
say
like
that's pretty wild.
they like interrogate you about your knife sharpening experience before they let you give them money. Um, but yeah, dude, do not ever do, dude. The number of people that I would trust to sharpen or do any work on one of my knives, like, that's a fucking small list. Like, a very small list. And I know a lot of people who do work on knives. Um, and it's not only a question of experience, but also, like, it's a question of, like, what standards somebody has. Like, I have really, really high standards on stuff, to the point where a lot of people would say, well, but it doesn't even matter. But it's like, it does if you've spent so much time sharpening things that, like these problems would stand out to you every time you looked at the knife. Like, you don't want to have, like, regret feelings pop into your mind every time you take your knife out.
Hmm. Good point.
I don't know if that makes sense, but, like, you know.
No, I see what you mean because I've even noticed it with my small experience, and I'm still learning, of course. But with the engraving, I mean, even though I'm nowhere near as good as the people that I kind of like look to for, okay, how could I learn something? What could I do? Where could I find this information? I spot other people who are doing work, and I'm like, oh man, even as a beginner, I can tell that that's not good. Like I can tell you made some choices that were cutting corners. Maybe it wasn't even purposely cutting corners. Maybe they just didn't know. But then they just put the work out there as is, and I'm like, "Oh, honey, what are you doing?
Yeah, it's like when
No."
people look at that My Life, they're like, yeah, there's some bad decisions that were made for this guy to end up in this situation. Um, but yeah, like, I don't know, man. It's one of those things that I'm just telling you, dude. The number of times where, like, I've been arguing with someone who doesn't know what the fuck they're talking about, but everybody else who's listening thinks this person knows what they're talking about. Like, it's a lot more than you would think, where these people are just talking as if they know what they're doing with knife sharpening. And it's like, you're literally wrong. Like, I don't know how else to tell you, but you don't know what you're talking about. And just because my, I guess, claim to fame is making handles or whatever, like, that doesn't mean that I don't know what I'm doing with sharpening. I just don't post my sharpening. You know what I
maybe
mean?
maybe maybe we should get some close-up shots of them blades.
I
Where are
can,
those blade shots?
I'll get some. Give me a sec. Um, Here, you go ahead and talk. I can't type and think at the same time. I usually can't even think.
No, but it is sad to your point because, while we're talking about tools and accessories, it's really, as a beginner, it's insanely difficult to navigate what's actually good to do and what will actually ruin your knife potentially. Like you could very easily, by listening to YouTubers, Instagrammers, whatever, but very easily you can end up ruining a knife if you just go down the wrong road. And the worst part about it is because oftentimes these are framed as beginner friendly videos. So a bunch of people will watch it and they might be sold on it thinking, wow, this person's really confident in what they're saying. Though their results look pretty good. And then they go ahead and try it and it's just absolutely not what they expected. And it's upsetting because why would you want anyone to have to learn that lesson on an expensive knife?
Yeah, but
It's just
also, something you had said, I think, is worth, like, emphasizing. Like, just because somebody sounds confident when they're saying something doesn't mean that they have a reason to be confident. And that's how a lot of people are manipulative, you know?
That's a big, big thing in the community, where as long as someone walks the walk, it is almost enough. Man, it even ties over to scamming. I've seen some incredible scam situations occur just because someone probably, when they were going back and forth in that DM, they just sold themselves ridiculously well, and someone just took the bait. In situations where normally someone would never fall for it, but because someone's smooth talking them, they're really confident in what they're saying, they just take it, and they get taken. Man, it even applies to the tools as well, where someone just gives some horrific recommendation. And the other part about it that people also need to keep in mind, is sometimes educated, and I don't even like to use the word educated. I'm gonna use the word
Edumacated.
I'm gonna use the word experienced. Some people who are actually experienced and know a thing or two will try to comment, and they'll try to steer people in the right direction. But I mean, oftentimes you can just be painted as a hater. You're a hater. You're a nobody, nothing with 10 followers. Shut up. Like
That's
it
how
go-
I always respond to people.
but it goes down like that regularly. I mean, regularly it goes down like that. And there's been situations where the only reason that I've been able to kind of comment on something and not get blasted is because people are like, oh, he's kind of on equal footing. He's got like what 40,000 subscribers. I don't know if I want to really challenge that. But it's like that shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter that I'm just coming with the weight of that following. It should just be like, oh, what he's saying actually maybe should be considered and explored further, as opposed to just saying you're a nothing nobody with 10 followers, shut up.
Right. Which, again, that's how I always respond to you.
Oh, like I'm a nothing nobody with 10 followers? Perfect.
Yeah, but the number's a little bit different, but it's basically the same. So let's see.
They're what are they? We'll have accusations. He botted those followers. He botted them.
Mm-hmm. So here's a close-up of a bevel. And let me clear this shit up right now. Right now. This is not called a grind. And the part of the knife that some people call the bevel, which let me also get something up here where I can show that.
So let me ask a question. Who would win, one shiny boy or someone sharpening knives at Blade Show?
I don't know. Depends how hard you can throw the knife. But this part here, which you'll see when it pops up on the screen, this is called the grind, not the bevel. This is the grind, not the bevel. And yet, some knife makers will call this the bevel. It literally, by definition, is not a bevel. The bevel is, by definition, a bevel. And let me show you. Give me a moment. Okay. This is a chamfer. This is a bevel. The bevel goes all the way to form the point. So by definition, unless it's like a Scandi grind or something, it is literally not a bevel. So I just think that needs to be cleared up, because words matter. So yeah, Stitch is cool. I like that you called him Stitched, STEAL though.
That's a spelling mistake though.
That's pretty rough. He's gonna be pretty upset when he hears about that. But I guess the point is, like, here, let me see. This is actually kind of a nice one too. The point is, and this actually is somebody else's knife. This is my friend's knife that I sharpened. So yeah, the point is, most people who do knife sharpening and stuff don't know what they're talking about.
I mean, just to go off of that, what's even more hilarious is to your whole topic about the bevel versus grind versus well, that was kind of the whole topic right there. But I mean, I've watched videos of people talking about balisongs that genuinely I don't think understand the difference between tang pin and zen pin. And yet they're offering recommendations on how to maintain the knife, how to take, like, it's the most bizarre thing that you can watch as an experienced person who doesn't even really like maintain. I really don't maintain my knives that frequently, but I know the very basics of it. And when you just when you see some stuff, I'm like, I just hope you use the wrong Loctite and have a very bad day, sir. I hope that the next time you put some Loctite in that balisong, you choose wrong and you
Right.
choose the one that's really difficult to take apart. And
I usually just hope people get run over by a bus.
or that hey, different forms of consequences and repercussions for different strokes or different. I worded that really badly, but
Great job. Good job. We're proud of you. Also, I'm just going to show this because I think it's cool. This is a radar that I designed these brackets for and also operated. So, how many of you have played with a radar? It's like dot. And if you did, it didn't have a titanium bracket on it. So
what a waste of perfectly good titanium, am I right?
whoa. Okay, I need an apology and a gift card or something.
Oh, like a money green dot or like a Western Union or
Oh yes.
or perhaps
Just give me the login for your bank. I promise it's all under control.
Oh yeah, no problem. I got you.
Cool. So what you can see here, let me see if I can get a better. Ooh, this one. This one you can kind of see. So at the edge, there's something called a micro bevel, and the micro bevel, essentially, you can have the biggest thing that's going to affect how much force is needed to cut something is the angle of the bevel. Okay. And the thickness of the blade, although they're very closely kind of related in terms of how they have that effect. The more shallow the bevel is, the less cutting force you need because you have to move a greater distance in order to spread the material a given amount. And so you would want like a really fine, like shallow bevel because it makes cutting stuff easier, but that would also create a more fragile edge. So what you do is you put a micro bevel on, which is at a slightly like steeper angle, maybe like 20 degrees versus 15 or something, and it significantly increases the strength of the bevel.
Which that's super interesting because now that I think about it, when I'm sharpening a graver for the engraving, I will put on what, at least in my mind, is the equivalent of a micro bevel, where you have the main part that I grind down, and then I maybe like a hair width. I'll sharpen it slightly at a higher angle, and that will, at least when I read it on the websites, they'll say, "Hey, that's supposed to increase the durability of the tip."
It does. In fact, not the width of the, like, there, I don't know how the height of the micro bevel, but the width, like in a cross-sectional sense, it increases the strength by like the cube of that. So it has a huge impact on the strength.
Which I would have never put two and two together that way. I was just like, oh, it makes it stronger. Sure, I'll sharpen it that way. But hearing it explained like that kind of is a cool way to hear it.
Yeah. So I think it's something about it is cubic, and I think it has to do with that width. But I could be wrong. I don't really, like, I can't picture in my head how you would take that and get something cubic out of it, but that's how it was explained to me. So, that's the purpose of the micro bevel, and that's also why my knives are all still super shiny, even though I've sharpened them multiple times, like quite regularly, is I'm just sharpening the micro bevel. So the micro bevel is just getting slightly larger over time. And so...
Oh man, it's so interesting because Again, this ties directly to the tools I'm using where if the tip breaks, sometimes all I have to do is just resharpen that little hairline, basically. Where as opposed to having to fully grind down that whole tip, I can just kind of take off a little bit and it'll get me back up to speed. So again, it's just so interesting to hear this, and I'm probably sounding way more excited than I should be, but it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean that's why I got really into it, you know, and it's why like I don't know, um, you know, people will sometimes comment on my posts, noticing like the bevel on like my rep or whatever. Here, give me a sec. I'm gonna post something up here or show something because this is like related to the tip. But you can see, you know, the tip on that, and it actually looks slightly rougher. And the reason is the constant angle system that I was using. It's very difficult to actually sharpen the tip without it slightly wanting to roll off because there's no support. And so
Hmm.
that's what caused that. Is it's slightly steeper, and so it didn't get hit with all of the finer grit ones. Like it only got hit with some of them. Um, and so that's what caused it. Now you wouldn't notice that with like the naked eye. I have some pictures here of like the damage tip before I did this. So yeah, this is the tip before, and let's see, where's the in between? Here's the in between, right? So that's like, I don't know, a fine grit diamond or something. And as you can see, like a fine grit diamond, you can still very, very clearly see the
Hmm.
cut lines on it. You know what I mean? So there's, you know, difference.
So say you're someone who is displeased with the sharpness of your knife, but you're terrified of ruining the edge through stupidity of sharpening it. Is there anything you could do to kind of at least maybe get that edge refined a bit without actually removing any material, or like, cause I don't know, I imagine you can basically push the, like, was it when a knife starts to get dull, one of the things that I imagine happens is like the teeth, so to speak, kind of flay out to the sides. Like if you were like push like a brush down onto a table, like the brush would flay out to the sides. So like could you hone it with one of those sharpening hones? Would that be a relatively safe thing to do, or is there still a chance you could mess that up pretty bad?
I mean, there's always a chance you can mess it up. But the finer grit something is, like the more effort it would take to cause damage, right? But a lot of times, what would happen when something dulls is like that edge, instead of being a point, just kind of gets slightly rounded over. That's one potential thing, but that would be more like if you just used it and over time it slowly wore down on it. You know, if you're cutting cardboard or something all day, that would be a cause for that. But a lot of times it's just the edge is damaged and rolled over. And so you'll actually see, if you look under the microscope, like it's like a triangle. I'm trying to think, like imagine like a pyramid, but there's just a hinge on one side of and the top just opens up kind of thing or whatever, right? That's kind of what happens is you roll the edge over, and you can sometimes fix that. Now it's not going to be as strong, but you can fix that by just stropping the knife, which is like using a piece of leather with like a polishing compound on it and moving the knife backwards, as opposed to like sharpening where you're going up the bevel. Um, you're doing the reverse, right? So you don't cut into the leather. That can cause those rolled edges to sort of flip back over to how they're supposed to be, but it won't fix it. Like it's just going to make it slightly better, you know, in the meantime.
But like, let's say just like normal maintenance of a knife, where it's like you notice it's starting to slightly get duller. Maybe is that something that could keep you going for a little while longer, or would it still be a need to go straight to the sharpening?
I don't think it would really do much for you. I think you would end up needing to sharpen the micro bevel because there's no way to like get the material back. You need something to remove material to form the edge again. And so I mean, technically, I suppose you could do that with a strop. It would take ages, and the strop is going to naturally want to produce a rounded edge because it's leather, and so it flexes, right? Which is how you can also get a convex bevel, which you would do using, sandpaper on top of. I mean, you could use leather, you could use some type of like hard foam, um, but that's how you get a convex edge. But basically, I don't really think that there's a way to sharpen it without using something that's going to actually, remove material and form that edge again.
Which is good to know because it kind of sounds like if you really, really, really are in a situation where you want to restore your knives, it's probably going to come down to get ready to practice or get ready to pay someone.
Yeah, and I would say don't pay somebody. Like, I just, I don't know, man. To send
Well, there's
somebody,
probably more pride in doing it yourself, where if you're able to fix the problem, get things up to where it's to your standard. I mean, there's a certain level of accomplishment in that. And I've looked at, because I know the stones I have for my gravers, they're on the more expensive side. I know they're diamond stones, so I know there's that extra little cost with that being kind of just how they are. But I mean, for some relatively decent sharpening stones, like what would you really be looking at for a knife?
like cost wise,
Yeah, cost wise.
I don't know. I mean, the problem is like you kind of need, if you really want to get it sharp, you need kind of a big set. If you want it to be like a razor, you can have like micro serrations on the edge, which you would get like on the that picture with the fine grit. Let me see if I can zoom in. I mean, it's difficult to see, but you can
Like
kind of see in this picture how there's little tiny micro serrations. But it's like you either have that or you have a full set to go up the grits slowly and create a finer and finer edge.
like as an example, for my gravers, I have four stones starting at 300, then to 600, then to 12, and then to 2000. Would that be something that could work for knives, or would you
Can you go
need to
over that
work it?
again?
Oh, so right. So for the gravers, I have four stones. I go from 300 to 600 to 12 to 2000. Now for a knife, would you be able to work up the same grit scale, or would it be a little bit different? Would you need more stones? I'm just curious because
um, I mean, I think that that would work. Like, if you really need to do aggressive, like, rebeveling, you would want, like, 80 grit something. Otherwise, your hand will get cramped. But basically, that should work. Like, 2000 grit will get it fine enough that, like, most people would not really recognize what was going on. Essentially, that, like, it would just seem really, like, nice and sharp, but you would still end up for sure having, micro serrations. However, you can fix that using a strop, um, which is not that expensive. You can make it yourself, but I don't know. I think I end like the last stone that I use or something before I strop is like an 8,000 grit or something. And the stropping, I mean, you can go way, way, way up in grit. Like I think the finest stropping compound I have is like 250,000 grit or something. But you have to work up to that with a bunch of other compounds, so that takes a long time. Like you really have to have a reason to get it that sharp.
exactly. And so maybe it's kind of one of those things where at a certain point, you don't really need to go. Like for the average person, that's kind of how I'd look at it. You don't need to go beyond a certain level unless you really want to pursue that.
Yeah, I mean, you can get it sharp enough that like it would work fine even if you just use like a 600 grit. Like the
Which that's
micro
also
serrations can help depending on what you're doing. Like you might want
which
the
that's
micro
also good to know.
serrations.
Because I've even seen, and I am always skeptical when I watch these type of videos, but you get those whole videos where someone's like, "Ooh, I sharpen my knife using a rock." Is there any validity to that?
Um if you had like a fine enough bevel already, you could theoretically do that, but anybody claiming to do that is lying. Because it just doesn't, like, nobody would actually do that. Like,
Exposed.
yeah, I mean, in my opinion, they're just completely lying, because it's like, it would be such a pain in the ass to try to maintain a relatively constant angle on something that's an organic shape, right? Like, it's not like you just find a ridiculously flat, like, stone in your front yard and just start sharpening your fucking kitchen knives on it, right? Like, that's just ridiculous. So,
Myth busted. But no, it's a good question to ask, I think, because if someone did want to go down that route of learning, I mean, maybe it could be as simple as, like you were saying, a 600 might be able to get you started, but you might, if you really wanted to, might want to work up from that, even that. Well, you said 80 or 80 grit.
I would be really careful using 80 grit, because if you make mistakes, it will. I mean, you don't have much room for, like,
It will
once
show.
like,
So
it's gonna
maybe
remove material like really fucking quickly.
maybe tone it down to a 300 and then maybe work from there if you really,
I
really
would
want to learn.
start at 2000 if you're new, and just sort of like get used to how it feels. Um, because if you start at 300, it's a lot easier to make the bevel more blunt than it is to make it sharper. Like, just the amount of material that you have to remove is less if you're making it more blunt. And so it's going to naturally just end up getting more and more rounded over. And so that just becomes more and more additional work to fix. You know what I mean?
I see.
Like, I'll never forget, I had posted this. This is on my personal account, like, a long time ago. I had posted a picture of a before and after for a bare bones, where the tip, I mean, like, when I say it's rounded over, I mean the radius of the rounding on the tip was like 3/16 of an inch or something. It was absolutely insane.
Yeah, it's pretty disgusting.
And so I was fixing it for this guy, who I think you'd be surprised who it is, because it's somebody we don't like. But we were friends back then, and I remembered posting, and I think it even was a video, and I was just explaining, like, like, the tip is mostly formed again, but I don't want to keep going, because it starts getting to the point where you're affecting the appearance of the knife negatively in other ways, right? And so it's almost better to just leave a slightly rounded tip than to have something that looks like strange, right? And this guy fucking commented, and he's like, "Oh, dude, you can send it to me. I got a 200, 300 grit stone. I can fix it up really quick." And I'm just sitting there thinking, like, what do you mean fix? Like, fix the obviously, I mean, even if you're just, you don't like me, it's like, it was an obviously decent job. Absolute worst. It was an obviously decent job fixing a rounded tip, especially when you can see a picture of the beforehand, and I'm explaining why I didn't completely reform the tip, which, it's like, do you really think I can't do that? Like, that just seems like such a ridiculous, the whole comment was just ridiculous to me. But it's another example of, like, a lot of people don't know what they're talking about with sharpening. And so they think, oh, I can fix that really quickly, when they have no idea what they're talking about.
It's pretty bad. It's like, I just going off of some of the stuff I see online, I already know. Like, I don't know the full mechanics of sharpening, but I can imagine how bad it gets, because I've even seen some finished products, and I'm like, that looks a little bit weird. Like, that modification job, what'd you do to the knife shape? Why does it look like that? That edge ain't looking too hot.
Right.
I've seen things, man. I've seen things.
Yeah, but you don't have to have, like, a super in-depth understanding of the mechanics of it, right? Like, it's just, like, it's like anything else. Like, there are a lot of people who think that they know what they're talking about, because they're able to do something that they don't understand the difference between their finished result and the finished result of someone who's spent hundreds of hours sharpening, right? Or thousands or tens of thousands. Like there are people who there are actually knife sharpening competitions. I don't know if you know that. Like there are people who sharpen knives competitively.
I can imagine there's competitions for a lot of things, and that's actually one of the more reasonable things to have a competition for.
Right. And so the difference between like somebody that they wouldn't understand that, well, they both cut, but that doesn't mean that they're the same. You know what I mean? Like there's a
Exactly.
huge difference. I mean, massive difference. Like you can find there's videos online of people cutting, cigarette paper. They just sort of it's folded and it's just standing up, and they swipe the knife down and cut the cigarette paper in half when like there's nothing holding it or supporting it, right? Like it's just freestanding.
Yeah.
Like that is an example of like what somebody who sharpens competitively can do. I can't get it quite like that, although I can get it to the point where it's like cleanly cutting like fine cigarette paper. The one time I tried to swipe at it, I hit a fucking piece of wood and had to like start over again with sharpening. I just didn't try it
Oh.
again after that. But I don't think I would have been able to cut it. So,
Hmm.
it's like it's just one of those things that the Dunning-Kruger effect or whatever. Like
I
people,
might need to be reminded.
so like you have this like U shape, on a graph of like how experienced someone is versus how experienced they think they are, right? And so people start out like thinking that they're much better than they actually are because they don't understand how complicated it is. And then in the middle is when it's like lowest, and then a little bit when you've been doing it for a super long time, your confidence goes up somewhat because you just have so much experience. But it still isn't like the people who are just getting started and would probably call themselves intermediate probably think that they're like my understanding is they think that they're better than somebody who's been doing it for 50 years. Like what in terms of their confidence would be higher than somebody who's been doing it for like 50 years.
Which is just it's such an interesting thing to think about because it's like, man, and a lot of people, unfortunately, especially with the internet, like because before it was a little bit harder to kind of spread information if you were just some hot shot spewing off information. But now, I mean, you got people out here, like you said, these modders who you're like, good lord, just because you bought all the equipment doesn't mean you're suddenly this expert on doing this. But they do a few anodizations or reprofiles of a knife or whatever, and all of a sudden they think they're professional grade quality, and it's like
Well, but
in,
I don't want to like discourage people because like I think people should try modding their knives and stuff, but like when you reach the point where you're telling other people that you do anodizing services, like you have an obligation, like an ethical obligation to actually make sure that you know what you're doing because you're going to be damaging other people's knives. Like who was that guy that you called out?
oh, that was a brutal
You know who I'm
situation.
talking about, right? Where he like ground through the blade.
Yeah, yeah, Pfeiffer Blade
Yes,
Works.
okay. I knew it started with a
Oh
P.
man, if I've ever made a bad association call in my life, that was one of the worst ones by far. And he basically turned a blade into literally worthless trash. I don't think there was any saving that blade.
No, there's no saving.
That was I looked at it and I was like, how could you have the balls to do that to someone who not only it's not like maybe he was doing it for free, but it was supposedly some competition that he did to try and like drive up interest in his modifications. And I'm like,
Which
man,
did work to some extent, didn't it? There were definitely people interested suddenly.
it's one of those crazy, crazy things that that was a bad situation all the way around.
I think
And
that's the only time I've seen you like call someone out the way that you did in that one.
it's because it was one of those situations where I realized very quickly that basically what, and it's something that I was like, oh, this cannot go down this way. You need to take accountability for your own actions. Do not be trying to hide behind me as a shield. So basically, I ended up getting messaged by people because they're like, oh, well, you surely talk to Piper on a regular basis. Can you get an update for me? And I'm like, I talk to him. I'm not his business manager. And so I was getting frustrated. I'm like, look, I I will to help you say, hey, you need to respond to this person, but like message him. Do not be messaging me on his like don't I'm not trying to be his fucking middleman for why knives aren't being returned. And so at a certain point, I recognized that he wasn't even responding to people. I'm like, okay, that's messed up. First, you get people messaging me who shouldn't even be messaging me, thinking that I'm going to have some ability to pressure you or that I even want to be bothered into pressuring you. And I get it. I get it. I did some videos with him. I let him practice on a few of my knives, lower value, but I still did. And so I get it. You could make the association very easily. And I was on good terms with him. I was until I found out he was secretly destroying knives. Like when it got to the point, like anodizations, I feel like there's a smaller chance of you absolutely destroying a knife. I did not know that he was secretly taking grinding jobs, like reprofiling jobs in the background. That was completely not part of the conversation. And then when I saw the knife, when I saw like that his username was Spooky at the time, when I saw what he had done to that knife, I'm like, I cannot allow this to go on any further in good conscience of being like a even remotely supporting what he was doing. There was no way I could do that in good conscience. I was like, look, don't send your knives to this person, and make sure that you remember not to. Like, here's some evidence as to what he's done, and I even mentioned some things about like I hope he writes this wrong in terms of you destroy the knife. I hope you replace the knife.
Did he?
I don't think he ever did.
Yeah, I think a lot of those people like almost exit scam. Like they're like, well, it's time to call it, and then they just leave. You know?
Yeah, it's a very and it's an unfortunate thing, but it's a very common occurrence where once the heat gets a little bit too hot, instead of kind of making right on the situation, they just say, you know what, I'm gonna bail. But part of the problem that they don't understand, and this happens all the time with well, not all the time with scammers, but it has happened with scammers, is you're playing with 300, 400, possibly if someone sends you two knives, nearly $1,000 worth of knives. And if you're destroying that, I mean, I'm not condoning that any kind of violence goes down, but people aren't above visiting your physical location if they think that you're fucking around with them for $800. Like you're trying to scam them out of $800. Like, and then that's the other thing that I'm like, dude, this ain't a game. Like, if you're playing around with 400, 500, whatever number of dollars, people get pretty, they feel some type of way when they think you're trying to pull them over, um, in any way. And especially if you actually are fucking around with them. I mean, I get it. I get why people respond so negatively.
Well, that's why I never like, dude. I don't know what it would take to convince me to like try to mod somebody else's knife. There are a very small number of cases where I've done it. One guy had a Konohishi that the anodizing on it was so awful that it offended me for that knife to exist in the state that it was. And the guy had been like a fantastic customer. And so I was like, well, I can give it a try. But you're gonna have to be okay with a bead blasted finish because, that way I can essentially, it's like, I don't want to have to etch off I don't want to have to like etch off the existing anodizing. And so, sorry, give me a second here. I'm getting a picture of it real quick. But like, I don't want to have to try to etch off the anodizing. I want to be able to get like an original fresh surface, you know, without etching. And so to do that on something where you don't have any kind of like fixture setup where you could like mill something or whatever, bead blasting is a fantastic way to do it, just because you can, I don't know, it's like spray painting, except it has sparks. One sec, I've got this almost ready. Look, I'm slow, okay?
I'm just trying to mentally follow, but you know how that goes.
Yeah, let me, so this was the final result, but you know, you can see how if, like, let's say this is like red inside this little chamfered area. If you either need to etch the anodizing off, you need to mill it off by just running this tool path again, although I don't have this tool path. Although I took the time to make a CAD model of the Konohishi. So I have a very high detail Konohishi model. Do not ask me to make clones, because I don't clone garbage. Sorry.
Ooh, spicy, spicy, spicy.
But, you know, essentially bead blasting allows you to just spray at this, and it, you know, it removes that oxidation on the surface, and the oxidation is what causes the apparent change in color. Because it's not, a lot of people don't know, but like when you anodize titanium, you're not applying like a pigment or something. Like what you have happen is the light that's reflecting off of the surface of the titanium dioxide layer interferes constructively or destructively with the light that's reflecting off the surface of the titanium underneath the titanium dioxide layer, and that causes an apparent change in color. So that's what's happening. And so you need to get rid of that titanium dioxide layer. And the reason why different voltages change the color is because you're changing the thickness of that titanium dioxide layer. And so, you know, thus changing how it interferes. So
Getting some it's not metallurgy, or is it would that fall under metallurgy, or what would that be?
I don't really think so. I mean, technically, I suppose, but it's not really what people would normally mean when they say metallurgy. So, you know, the Konohishi is just a problem knife.
I think we've touched on this before. I mean, it's never really appealed to me, just looks wise. I've never really cared about how it flips, but just from a personal level, it never really appealed to me looks wise. I mean, there was that one that I had sent you that I was like, oh, that's interesting that it was engraved. Though I'm still not sure. I'm still not sure if it was actually hand engraved
I
or
don't
if
think
it
it was hand engraved.
was machined.
There
Like I'm
were
not.
enough similarities between them that like what appeared to be similar mistakes. And I say mistakes, like, you know how if you're sketching something, like the lines are not necessarily perfect. Well, those imperfections were identical in multiple areas on multiple of those handles.
I'm
So
gonna see if I can find that picture real
yeah,
quick.
I don't know that I'm not convinced that was you know, actually done by hand.
Like it's possible, but I don't know. I
I
don't know if I
think
can make the call.
it seems to me like one of those cases where you have people that will call something hand finished in the hopes that you assume it's handmade, when literally define finish, right? Like, does cleaning it count as finishing it? It's ridiculous.
I'm gonna check the comments to see if I can find anything.
This picture right here. Tell me what you think of this. Did I ever show you this? I basically added like white caps onto the little ripples. I thought it looked like waves, kind of.
Oh, let me see. Let me open up this. Oh, that's a nice look on that. I like it. It's kind of like it looked good when you're flipping it in the light. That's what would happen. That's the effect you'd get.
Yeah, I don't know who I sent those to. But I think that those were customers.
That's definitely a nice look.
Yeah, who if that's a customer's, you got lucky because that's the only one of those in existence. So
Oh, next we're gonna see it on Instagram. $1,000. Don't lowball me.
yeah. So
Or what is it? Looking to trade. Only will trade for new in box. Benchmade 47. Uh,
with receipt.
with box papers, everything.
Yeah, so like, by the way, if you look in these countersinks in that picture, do you see how it's a slightly different color? It looks a little bit more like purplish in these areas here.
Uh,
The reason for that is there's an additional bit of probably just oil from my hands when I was doing the sanding or something, and so that oil that goes on top of that titanium dioxide layer also impacts what the apparent color is, which is why anodizing color changes when you touch it, but then goes back to the original color when you clean it. That's what's happening.
I think I'm fine. I think that makes sense. Yeah, that makes enough sense.
Cool. Everything I say makes sense. So but yeah, like it's just I'm gonna be honest. I'm actually pretty happy with I might do that on mine or something. That looks kind of neat. But anyway, yeah, that's that, I suppose.
I think oh man, one thing dude, I didn't send you the picture, but I sent it in a different group. I recently actually successfully was able to do a introduction into inlay. So I put a piece of copper, I did a channel for it in a piece of titanium, and I stuffed that shit in there, and it actually stayed. And I'm like, oh man, the possibilities of being able to do that with some balisong handles are off the
Can you start over? Like, I'm not sure I followed exactly what you were saying there.
So basically I was just going off on a tangent where like with your kind of like anodization stuff, I was like thinking about like engraving possibilities as well. And I was like, I've recently tried doing an inlay of copper into titanium and it was relatively successful. And then I was like, boy, oh boy, if I got my hands on some silver or some gold and stuffed that into a balisong handle, that could get really cool real quick.
Keep in mind if you do that, you would need to anodize the knife before you put the inlay in because when you're anodizing, you can't have any other metals. So I don't know that. I mean that shouldn't have much of an impact, but just don't spend all this time on the inlay and have it like epoxied in and then ask somebody to anodize it because it won't go well.
Epoxy? We don't epoxy it. No.
Oh, you better listen to
No.
me. You
No,
absolutely epoxy it in.
you what? No, that's not how inlays work.
It depends. I mean,
Okay,
that's how
okay.
some inlays could work. I'm not saying that
Uh,
you would need to do that, but
Imagine, because this is how I understand it right now, and someone who's an engraver is probably going to blast me and be like, "No, you idiot, shut up." But the way I imagine it is, you basically have a rectangle, like a U, like a U shape. That's the initial cutout that you make for the channel for the inlay. However, you then go into that channel and you basically jab at the sides to form like a T shape, like a upside down T shape. And when you go to press the metal in, the gold, the silver, the copper pushes into that T-shaped channel in that cutout. So theoretically, it should take quite a bit of force to actually yank that inlay out from the channel.
right. But I don't know that by definition an inlay has to be done that way. Like I never. My understanding is, I mean, unless I'm confusing inlay with insert or something. Let me look. Like I mean I think literally like the term inlay comes from it laying in or lying in.
I'm gonna inlay you 6 feet below, boy.
I will smack you.
That is a joke. That is not a threat. That is a joke. This is comedy. Everything I've said is satirical. Do not take anything I say seriously.
Yeah,
Just
look,
making
a
that
design pattern or a piece of material inlaid in something. An
Yeah, but
object by embedding pieces of different metal in it, flush with its surface. It says
yeah,
nothing about the
well,
manner in which you
I
inlay it.
mean, you're really cutting around here. You're cutting deep. I mean, but there's different ways to do the inlay. And that's the way that I've at least read that engravers typically will do it.
Well, yeah, but I'm not saying that there aren't that's not a valid way to do it. But you corrected me.
I'll do it
Saying that,
again. I'll do it again.
dude, this is how people end up getting planes flown into their house. Okay. But
I still want to know how they got an interview with him in a cave with CNN. I still want to know.
wait, who? What?
Oh, okay. We're not talking about planes anymore.
No, I don't. Who are you talking about?
The caveman,
What caveman?
the one that CNN interviewed in a cave that then years later conducted a series of planes flying into various structures.
Um,
Oh, never mind.
are you talking about 9/11?
Not well, yes, but I'm also talking about a few years prior to that. CNN was miraculously able to conduct a interview with Osama in a cave. Just apparently, they were able to find him when no one
Like
else
the El
could.
Chapo interviews and shit.
Yeah, I'm like, this is really, really weird. How no one really questioned how that went down.
Well, I meant, there was like this guy recently. Okay, you want to talk about a complete failure? And I'm not saying that the guy was in the wrong necessarily in terms of like the divorce thing, but like this woman was divorcing him, and there was all sorts of. It was like all divorces, right? Where they're just trying to like damage the other person. Um, but this guy told his son, like his biological son, that he should go hang out with a friend, which I know this sounds like you're cool, don't come to school tomorrow, because it kind of was. And he hopped in his private jet and tried to crash it into, his former house, which his wife was in, although his son didn't listen to him and he was in the house too. But he didn't make it all the way to the house. He just like pancaked it into the driveway. So it's like, it just seems like everything went wrong for that guy,
Yeah, that's mighty pathetic.
Yeah, let me see if I can get a picture real quick.
That's quite the pathetic story. Now he's probably gonna listen to this podcast and be like, "Great, I was like one of the only people watching, and you just insulted me. Thanks."
I assure you, he is no longer with us. Yeah, I got it here. So, I assure you, a citation or whatever that is, flying at, red line speed, would do a bit more damage to the house than that if it actually impacted it with full force. But he didn't. So,
Oh, that's like nothing.
I know.
Oh man, how pathetic.
I know, dude. It's like, come on, man. Like, this is what your flight training is for.
Apparently not. Man, imagine like going to pilot school just to fly a plane that badly. Wow. Okay.
Pilot school.
It was aviation.
Flight lessons.
Oh,
I mean, I suppose
okay,
you could call my university like a pilot school, because it kind of is. By the way, so there's this picture is a King Air like 250 or 350 or something. And It has what are called turboprop engines, which are a form of turbo shaft engine, which is essentially you've got like a core, which is like a jet engine, and essentially the exhaust that's not being used to power the core itself is you extract as much of it as possible to power a propeller or a rotor system in like a helicopter, right? That's what a turbo shaft engine is. But you have to start them a lot differently than like a piston engine plane. Like a piston engine plane, you just hop in and you have to get a few things ready, but you just turn the key, right? With a jet engine, any type of jet engine, you need to get it rotating up to speed first, because if you just try to start it and put fuel in right away, like it'll melt itself, right? So
I thought, not to be too uneducated about this, but I thought the way that you start a turbo plane is by feeding it a number of birds directly into the engine.
No, that's how you turn it off.
But I heard that the blood satiates the insane hunger of the engine.
It does, actually. It does. Nobody minds a little bit of roast chicken. But basically, you need to have airflow going through. So you use, there are a bunch of different starting systems, whether they're hydraulic, there's what's called a start cart. And then there's also something called a cart start. A start cart is like a jet engine on the ground, kind of, or some other type of engine that is providing like bleed air or whatever it's called, something like that, to the plane so that it can start, right? But a cart start is like something that I think like F4s could do and stuff, but it's like this, I don't know, slow burning explosive essentially, and that's used to spin up the engine, because you need to get, again, you got to get the speed up before you introduce the fuel. We're getting way off topic, but anyway, the point is you need to get the engine turning as much as possible before you introduce the fuel, and you want to generally provide the same assistance as it's continuing to spool up, even when it's burning the fuel, because again, you want to get it, essentially you want the temperature to get under control as quickly as possible. But this 17-year-old girl got in this plane, somehow started it, and then crashed it into like a building and a fence or something. And it's like, how do you manage to start that but not know how to taxi a plane? It's just, it's a puzzle to me. You know what I mean? Like, if she hops in a piston plane, I get it, right? But Jesus, dude, how do you do that with a turboprop but not know how to taxi?
Yeah, I don't have the answers.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's probably going to be someone who listens who has the same puzzling thing. I don't know if anybody has any ideas, like put it in the comments, because I posted it on Facebook and none of my pilot friends could give an answer. So I think this is the next big conspiracy theory.
Oh no. We go from a knife channel to a conspiracy channel. Oh boy.
Yeah, but so that's whatever you were saying when I got triggered and I said this is how planes end up in houses. It was that's what I was talking about.
No, it's all right. I mean, that was a fun tangent. I think we kind of exhausted most of the main tools and accessories that someone would think of when it comes to knives that would immediately improve, or possibly improve their longevity or experience with it. So I think we had a good chat,
A good talk,
a good discussion, if you will.
discussion. Duh. Sorry, that was really gay. Yeah, I would agree. This is what happens when I try to fly a plane. Don't worry, you'll see. It's traumatizing.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, I mean, I don't see anything, so I have to even question if you fly planes, and if that's just a CGI
I use the term
render.
fly quite loosely.
It's a CGI render. I'm on to you.
Yeah. Here.
That looks relatively on its side.
This is a picture of me landing a Cessna on an aircraft carrier. Okay. It's not photoshopped or anything. Yeah, my dad took this picture when we were landing, I think back in Prescott. And I decided to Photoshop it. Not that bad of a Photoshop, man. You got to be honest. Like, that's a pretty decent job. Would you agree?
I mean, is this Bollywood or is this a blockbuster film?
Okay. Well, this is abuse. I'm sad. I am a sad.
I mean, yeah, you'd probably be a top-rated actor in Bollywood.
Oh yes. With all my white privilege. Did you ever see these? Here, I'm gonna post them on screen, but I'll just send you so you could just see. I did this.
Did you make those?
Yeah, a long time ago.
Pretty cool. Ago. I've never fully been into the whole glowing handle thing, but it's a generally cool thing. It's just no one's really made a cool enough video for me to care yet, you know? Like, you kind of see the glow in the dark thing and people will take a picture of it and then they'll never do anything with it.
Right. Here. Do you remember that guy?
Oh, wait.
He was kind of like Pfeiffer. Like he would say, like, he would have people's knives and not send them back, and then when he got enough pressure, he would like talk about how he was autistic or something. Just
his page still exists.
Does it?
The page still
No
exists.
way. I need to see this.
I think is it NZ or is it NZR Customs?
No, it's NZ Customs.
There's no posts though.
I don't find that surprising. What's he tagged in? I can't open. I have to log in.
Although I think there's no one. It doesn't look like there's any Battle Song people that follow him though.
Yeah, I think that's somebody else has a bad choice in names. I almost want to like message the guy and tell him like, "Yo, dude, you might want to understand the history." But no, NZ Customs. He was like a 16-year-old or something, and he would always, dude, he would just come up with excuses to not send people back their knives. And I even called him out on it a few times, and dude, I'm telling you, anytime there's been something like that where like I've called someone out, I gain followers, even though, you know, supposedly controversy is supposed to be a bad thing. When you call somebody out who's doing something like that, it doesn't matter, you gain followers. So I think that's kind of amusing.
Oh, partially because people like drama, but they also like drama when someone is kind of speaking truth.
Yeah, and it's also just fascinating to watch people come up with excuses and stuff. In my opinion.
It's horrendous. Some of the stuff I see, I'm like, how can you? Even if you want to label yourself amateur, how can you even label yourself an amateur and conduct yourself in this manner?
Right. Amateur is my favorite category.
Like I don't even fully feel comfortable calling myself a novice in engraving, and you got people out here acting like they're doing professional grade work with anodizing or reprofiling blades, and I'm at a loss for words sometimes.
Yeah. Well, Sharks. Do you want to call it a week? Or I'm not a week. I suppose a week, but fucking
technically it's a week.
You want to call it a podcast?
I think we aren't going to call it that. I don't know what that is, so I'm going to...
A podcast?
Oh, I thought you said pike. Like it sounded way different.
Maybe did I say something different? By the way, I made this. Rafogo was another guy like NZ Customs, and I took this quote and I made it into some kind of like background for someone's computer or something.
Oh, that's like those inspiring quotes.
Yeah. God, dude.
Oh man.
It's amazing. I haven't heard from these people in a long time.
I remember that user, Rafogo. Mm-hmm. I remember that. I think he got caught scamming someone.
I think he did. I called him out on it. And I think it was somewhere where he tried to put that. In fact, I'm pretty sure I know who it was that he scammed. And the reason why I said something is because it was a friend of mine who's
Dude,
Korean.
it is so funny how you can't. Then, of course, all these accounts are long gone and deleted.
Hey, this one is not. I'm not posting this one on the screen. The screen. But I'm gonna show you anyway.
Okay. All right. I think we're gonna end. I think we're gonna end this. Calling it a wrap.
Yeah. Trying to see if there's anything else here that would be worth. You know, I do think we didn't touch a whole lot on the tooling specifically for maintaining knives, so we might change the title of this one, and we could do that on like another week, because I can definitely talk about my experiences with some different tools. So
yeah, that'd be an interesting follow-up.
Cool. Check this out. My dad took this picture. These are all my dad's knives. They all have custom stuff from me on them.
I mean, some of those look like normal 51 32s.
What?
Oh wait, are those your handles?
Yeah, all of those are either my scales or handles.
Oh, I was gonna say, I was like, wait a minute, those just look like normal 32s. I was like, oh, wait a minute, it's probably his handles.
But do you mean the 51?
No, you have two 30. Those are 32. Wait, are those actually 51s? Those are so tiny.
No. But there's a 51 on the right. Then there's a 32 next to it, but the 32 looks like a 51 for the scales. It doesn't have the Benchmade like 42 pattern.
I honestly forgot what the
Here,
32
let me
looked
find
like,
one.
I completely forgot what they looked like.
Give me a sec. Here, I have no idea what this website is, so like I wouldn't go to it, but that's a 32 from Benchmade.
Yeah, definitely. Yep. Yeah, that explains. I was like, that looks like a normal 32 to me. And then I realized I forgot what a 32 looked like.
Yeah, so the one on the right, those are the only scales that I made with that pattern on it. And he liked them. I need to change the anodizing. I told him I would re-anodize the liners. But I anodized the liners like a bronze color on the 32 that's second from the right. And then the 63, I bought that when on Blade HQ right after Benchmade discontinued the 63. And I made those handles, and I decided one of my friends had given me his Benchmade 51 clip, so I decided to essentially put a clip on his 63, you know, so that he could carry it around and anodize it, because he always liked the 62 on the top left was the first one of the 6X series. The 32 second from the left is actually the first battle song that he had, and I made those scales by hand. But he didn't want them anodized or anything too crazy, and so I wanted to have him have some kind of ridiculous looking handles. So I got him the 63, made those handles, and put the clip on it for like a birthday present. So that was a big birthday. So
now those are like a sunset type look that are always nice. I always like those sunset type looks on a Nano.
I love, you know how like if you look at the bottom where like the purple kind of turns into like this weird, it's like almost so blue that it's like blowing the camera out. I love that color, the like indigo color at the bottom of the handles.
Yeah, you could call that an indigo.
Yeah, I love that color.
Yeah, as opposed to like a boring purple, because there's some like boring ass purples I've seen.
Yeah, and you can also see I sharpened. I think I sharpened his 62, his 63, maybe his 32. I think he sharpened his 51 and the 32 on the right. So he actually cut himself in the store when he was messing with the 32. Because he had his hand, like the handle was up, right? So when he flipped it around, he was trying to do slowly, like a basic opening the same way he would do it when he was holding it down by his hip, right? But because he was up on a counter, when he flipped it over, the blade just came down and hit him instead of just drooping down. You know what I mean? Like, you see what I'm talking about?
It makes sense. I mean, it's an easy way to whack yourself, truthfully.
No, I know. I just think it's kind of funny. My dad might not think it's funny.
See, the physical scars may have healed, but the mental scars are forever.
Yeah, the emotional wound is deep, very deep. They don't make Band-Aids for something that deep. You know what I'm saying? Actually, they do. It's called alcohol. That's what I do.
Oh, how do I fix the boo-boos inside?
Heavy drinking. Hey, I looked up Benchmade 32 and my fucking scales show up in the result.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
That's funny. Look at this. I'll send it to you. Let me see if this is still the case. It's not on this account. Because I'd searched in incognito mode. Hold on a second. It's gone for some reason. For the longest time, if you just search titanium, like in the second row was just a picture of my 6X handles.
That's weird. Let me see if I get anything pop up.
Yeah, wow, I can't even find it when I'm scrolling way down. Do I have like a filter on?
No, I'm not seeing anything myself. I wonder if Google and these other search engines are getting better at filtering out like things that they deem to be weapons.
Yeah, I don't know. That's interesting that no longer shows up, and it doesn't show up even like when you scroll quite a ways down. Like,
I tried I tried DuckDuckGo to see what the difference would be, but they actually just show like the element like just as is.
like just 22.
Like they're just showing blocks of chunks of titanium. It's not even like formed into a bar or anything. It's just a chunk of titanium.
What happens if you search Benchmade 62? It just seems odd to me. Yeah, if you search Benchmade 62, I'm in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th row, right in the middle. That's not very good, but I also don't really care a whole lot. Ooh, I wonder if it's because I switched to V2 and so the URL changed.
Yeah, I don't know.
That could be it. Anyway, I'm going to just show this up on screen so people can see what it is that, you know, shows up in the result. But, yeah. Do you like how it's glowing?
It hasn't popped up for me.
In Discord, I sent you.
Oh, okay.
You fucking idiot. Neck yourself.
Man, you put on some weak ass filter, man. Man.
Actually, that took a while in I used Pixelmator back then, not Photoshop, but maybe it was Affinity Photo.
That looks like it's a battle song trying to be featured in a gangster's paradise.
Yeah, it's in the spotlight. It's like, ah. Yeah, dude. Dude, I want to get one of those titanium Ridge wallets.
I thought about getting one of those just to engrave it, but I'm like, it costs so much as is.
Yeah, but they use Torx in their construction and everything.
That
tells you everything you need to know, dude. I don't like the heat anode that they put on it though. But we both know that the second that fucking wallet showed up, that shit would be disassembled and in my CNC machine with some stupid fucking pattern being put on it.
Oh no.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I know Ridge Wallets funds a bunch of, or sponsors, I suppose, a bunch of YouTube videos. Do you think that they would sponsor a titanium addict and a flipping addict? in their rants and
It is
bants.
it is worth a shot. I've seen. I mean, what's funny about Ridge is a lot of the YouTubers that I actually like have sponsorships with them, which I'm like, that's a good sign because I've seen some real like good lord if it, Raid Shadow Lake. Oh
Oh
my
fuck.
god.
And I can't
Ugh.
stand when you have people like going like, I play it too, you know, join my clan. It's like,
No,
bitch,
you
we
don't.
both know you
No,
don't play that game.
no, you turned it on and off and said cool.
Yeah. Like, ooh, multi-gear. Oh, dude, they have knives. Yo.
Well, Ridge has other
Yeah.
things other than wallets. I didn't
Yeah.
know.
Here, let me send you a link. Huh. What I do notice is they sponsor channels that are very politically incorrect. And so I like them as a company because they don't just, you know, they call it the Summit knife. Hmm.
Hmm.
Interesting. I wonder what would happen if we bought one of those and did some kind of cool design and put titanium scales on it and stuff.
Interesting.
Right? And you can it's a nice flat surface that you can engrave, right?
Oh, flat surfaces are the best.
Yeah, but isn't that like the perfect size and everything?
Let's see. Let me check out what size dimensions we got here. Man, anything around like an inch by 3 inch or more would be pretty good.
I
We have
mean, it looks pretty close.
they measure I can't do freaking weird math. Millimeters? How do I measure in millimeters?
Oh,
It's
they
like
they use the cuck form of dimensioning.
nah. I think an inch works out to
It's about
about
4
two.
inches.
Oh, that's perfect.
An inch is 25.7 millimeters, I believe.
Yeah, that's actually like a
Or maybe no,
perfect.
25.4. Maybe one of those.
Well, the way it works is what 2.5 equals.
2.54.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Elitist.
Okay, so um oops. Yeah, 25.4, not 25.7. 25.4. So,
They got some pretty glowing reviews, I must say.
they
These
have
are quite
69
glowing.
reviews.
Hey, nice.
Yeah, interesting. I will say I'm not necessarily. Wait, what happened to the? What was I looking at before, where I could
I think
see
you're just
the?
looking at the normal wallet.
Oh, I was looking at this page. The bevel looks like I wish that they had like a choil or something, which maybe they do, but I have to look.
Now, what's interesting is they're saying they offer in either carbon fiber or titanium, but what they do to the titanium to make it that dark?
I'm not sure, but it's an interesting question. I
Huh?
wonder if they would tell us.
That's some dark titanium. Damn.
It is. That's why I think it's probably a coating.
Uh
It's not trivial to darken titanium, especially to that extent.
yeah.
And just because it's darkened using, even if you're using some kind of coating, that doesn't mean that it's not titanium. Weird. The titanium is cheaper than the carbon fiber.
Yeah, I noticed that too. Carbon fiber. But you know how people get about carbon fiber.
Yeah, but
Freaking.
also, well, it is lighter, but it's also really tough on your tools. So it very well maybe would cost them more. It really depends on essentially what they're doing right there. They could do this relatively easily in titanium. Like that's a ridiculously simple shape. Um, and they just have like a chamfer on the edge, which is that's fantastic efficiency wise, like machining wise. So, you know, to get that cut out of, you know, like cut on a water jet and do just a few things to clean it up and finish it up is not that expensive in titanium. I don't think it's that expensive in carbon fiber either. So maybe they're just charging more because of the like less weight, like lower weight.
Hmm. Maybe.
I'd
Maybe.
rather have the titanium though.
Oh man, who would if I have the choice between carbon fiber and titanium, it's usually going with titanium.
Yeah, there are only certain circumstances where I would go with carbon fiber. I don't like that it doesn't have a choil on the blade. I definitely would say that I don't like.
Let me get my handy dandy Dremel real quick.
Well, you know, I did put a choil on my Alpha Beast, right?
Well, now they come with them though, so that's like the
Yeah, but I put one on
before they became cool.
Yeah, let me give me a second here. I'm gonna see if I can. I don't know that I ever posted an actual picture of it. Anyway, and I don't have it with me right now. Somebody else has it. But I know it's weird, like that somebody else has my knife. But don't worry, they're not modding it. They're just messing around with it. I don't want people to freak out. Everything's under control.
Comes back, no screw or broken Zen pin screw.
Oh, I thought you didn't want the NO on it.
Oh.
Nah, that would not happen with this person. But yeah, like I generally would never send my knife out, but in this case I know it's going to get returned, and it would also be interesting to see what somebody actually. Do you want to try it? My Alpha Beast with the ripples on it?
I mean, I'm open to the idea.
Okay. I will send it to you once it gets returned to me.
All right.
You can tell me what you think. You can be like, Doug, that looks like fucking trash. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. You can have that opinion. All right, I will allow that opinion. Okay, like you're entitled to your opinion. It's just a stupid opinion. Okay.
I'd be like, man, I could have used. I actually could have been like, I could be like, yeah, this could have been medical grade equipment, and instead you turned it into this.
1 second.
This could have been used to save someone's life, but you turned it into a handle.
Hold on. I logged into Instagram. I don't like logging into Instagram on the computer, but I want to be able to scroll down.
I'm surprised they never really optimized it for it ever. Like, it's still garbage on the computer.
Okay, so this is before I had anodizing. Oh, is it really gonna? That's fucking stupid. This is before the anodizing. I gotta see. I thought I posted a picture of it after anodizing.
Oh, I've seen this before. Yeah, you showed me this before.
Yeah, well, I put an ano on it, like a blue to purple or purple to blue-ish kind of thing. Where is it, dude? Hold on, because I know I posted pictures of it somewhere. That's so odd. I don't. Huh. That's strange. I wonder if it's because I really want to show you. I mean, I think it turned out pretty decent. It's definitely not perfect. Like there's an imperfection in the anodizing on one of the here it is. I'll send it to you on Instagram, okay?
Okay.
Talk about an autistic caption on this one. It's sending, it's just, going at speed of molasses.
Okay, so I haven't seen this before, and I'm gonna rate it a medium to. Oh, I can't rate it.
Oh, get wrecked, bitch!
I want to rate it a medium, Duck.
Okay. But yeah, so the blade is sort of blackened a bit. I will say it's dulled right now, just because this other person doesn't like to flip sharp. Dude, you're just gonna have to deal with it. I'm sorry. I could sharpen it, but I enjoy the fact that you don't like that it's dulled. So.
Oh my god. I'm gonna have to do a video where like I do some crazy combo and then I just like
And that's why you
slice.
flip dull, folks.
Uh, let me do my triple scissor.
Dude, oh my god.
You're
Yeah.
really fooling people with that triple scissor. You're really fooling people.
Yeah. But
Ay, ay, ay.
yeah, like, you know. Yeah, I can send that to you and you can try it out.
Let me just start engraving.
I'm gonna be slightly like displeased if you do that.
It wouldn't work. That surface would be so much of a pain in the ass to work with that I wouldn't even want to
Oh
try.
yeah, that shit would be cancer.
Like I'd be like, okay, I guess I could do the underside of the handle maybe, but
Yeah, here I'm gonna show you this meme. I like it. I like it. Cool.
But all right, I think
Oh, I can
I
show
honestly don't.
people. I can show people the shiny bevel on my replicant. Here, I'll send you a link.
Shiny bevel, shiny bevel.
Is that shiny enough for you?
Pretty good.
Stupid hoe.
It's all right.
And then there's all this anodizing. See, this is anodizing right here. I don't know. I think it's not that bad, right?
I still don't understand why like they're spread apart the way that they are when you clearly have 4 sets that basically match.
They're
And
in it by order number.
you just spread them apart like a
No, you fucking idiot! By order
hard
number.
over the.
Plus, see those in the top left? See those really shitty ones? Guess who owns those?
Man. Man.
Yeah. So,
But like the way you organize this, like how do you need assistance dressing yourself in the morning? Like do you have a
oh my god, it
liaison?
clashes.
You could have just put the 4 silver next to the 4
No,
silver.
they're in the number by the order number is how they're arranged. You stupid fuck.
All right, well you could have maybe I don't know
Change the order number.
You could have changed the order number.
Just ship people the wrong thing. They might not like that actually.
This is like a nightmare for someone who even likes mild organization.
Cool. Well, in that case, I got something else cool that you're gonna like. You're gonna love this. You're gonna love this. You're gonna love this.
This is an atrocity. This picture is bad, and you should feel bad.
Talk about those shitty looking ones in the top left. Who the hell would get green bead blasted ripple replicant handles? Who'd be dumb enough to do that? Do you know anybody?
They actually stand out the best with like the matte look, though.
Yep.
They really do. But yeah, this is set up by like a psychopath. You should probably get checked out, actually.
Well, I'm technically a sociopath.
Yeah, you might want to get that checked out too.
Dude, I'm not narcissistic, okay? My intelligence, I'm sorry, my humility is second only to my intelligence. I fucked up my own joke.
Yeah, well, I feel like there was supposed to be something more than how that was
okay,
just
well, I feel like you should hang yourself.
Oh, man.
This is a non-bead blasted finish, and I think that, like, I don't know, like, in bad lighting, the bead blast anodizing for sure stands out the best. Although I like the look of the semi-polished finish in most situations. So basically, you're wrong in most situations.
The semi-polish is definitely an ooh type look. Right. Well, nothing wrong with that. I like shiny too, but in terms the whole problem with it standing out on camera is the same reason why it's hard to take a picture of something that's basically been mirror polished. It's because the light just wants to do stupid ass shit, and you have to try and you can't really have a single light source. You have to have like an array of light surrounding whatever you're trying to take a picture of. Basically, like soft light all the way around it, because otherwise it's just going to reflect in such a stupid way.
Right. Cool. Well, I think that's this is probably a good time to end the stream. What do you say?
I think we had a good one.
Cool. Alrighty. Well, we will see you guys next week. Do you think we're going to be able to have that guest ready for next week?
I'm still going back and forth with them. We will see. I talked about basically how we stream and what app we use. So just making sure he's on the same page, and we'll go from there.
Is he interested in joining?
Yes.
Okay. Well, he should be able to get Discord on his phone and everything.
Or computer.
Or computer.
I have it. Yep.
Cool. Well, we will see if we can have that ready for next week. We will announce who it is when we've got that all worked out. Yeah. Anything else you want to say?
I'm good.
Anything you have to say for yourself?
First time.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Night, guys.